Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, September the 6th, 2021. It is currently 10:33 a.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from the empty sanctuary of Victory Baptist Church, located right here in the middle of nowhere, Texas. And let me tell you, you can be in the middle of nowhere, Texas, and strange things can happen. Strange things can happen even when you're in the middle of nowhere, Texas. Now, one of our listeners, he sometimes jokes, he goes, for a church that's in the middle of nowhere, a lot of crazy things happen to your church and happens around your church. And I cannot disagree. Early this morning, a couple of hours ago, I was driving here to the church. I loaded everything back up, took the 20-minute drive back here. And when I'm done today, I'll pack everything back up, drive 20 minutes back home. I love being able to come here in the middle of nowhere so that I can record and I don't have, dogs barking, people knocking on the door. I don't have a lot of those distractions. Well, sometimes we do get some distractions here, but that's a different story. Let me press on. But yes, that drive, a lot of miles on the car, the gas prices or, wherever they are right now, I think almost $3 a gallon. So, sometimes it's expensive and it's just, it's a little bit of work to pack everything up and come here and set everything up. But I do like the fact that I can come here and for the most part, I'm I'm going to be left alone because I'm in the middle of nowhere, but you never know what's going to happen. So here's what occurred. There's two different ways to get to our church. You can come down with Highway 83, 84, I think that's the highway. And you can, there's basically a Y that occurs in the highway. And you can go right, and that will take you through the small town of Tuscola, Texas. And after you go through this small town of Tuscola, Texas, you're about 2 miles away, and then you come into it's not really a town, Val. Basically, you come to the church. You'll see the church on the left-hand side of the highway, a little white, kind of a larger white building, not large, a medium-sized white building. I don't know how do you describe it, but it's a white building there in the middle of nowhere. Okay, now, the other way, instead of taking the right, you kind of go left and just kind of continue straight, and you continue out in the middle of nowhere, and you'll see a little sign that says Ovalo, and you take a right there, and you go into this back country road. There's nothing out there but horses and cows and whatever is out there, not much of anything. And if you come that way, when you kind of come around a turn and you'll enter kind of into quote unquote Ovalo, it's not much of a town, you'll see a few houses. And as you get past those houses, to the right, you're going to see the post office, a little small building, just a little small building. So by that point, I've slowed way down. I'm doing 20 miles an hour because the church is right next to the post office. So I slowed down, and as I looked over, I'm like, what in the world? There's a body laying right there, right there next to the door of the post office. I'm like, who's laying next to the post office? It's a holiday. The post office is not even open. What's going on? I'm like, okay, is the person okay? What's happening? So I get in my car and I start thinking, okay, most likely. Now, I know we're in the middle of nowhere, but it's got to be someone who's homeless. And so as soon as I get out of the car and go open up the door of the church, they're going to come directly to me and ask for money because we get a lot of people stopping here asking for money. All right. We get people coming here asking us to pay their bills, electric bills, rent, car payments, you name it. And we do everything we can to help as many people as we possibly can. We really do try. Now, we've been ripped off and taken advantage of countless times, which can be frustrating because sometimes it's frustrating from a human perspective because you just want to look at them and go, look at the church you're asking for money from. Okay. Look at this little look, we're in the middle of nowhere. Okay. But okay, we'll do what we can. So we try to help. So I'm thinking, okay, now they're going to come here and ask for money. I don't know if the person, I don't know, how the person's going to be handling themselves, if they're going to be. So I know what I'll do. We don't have any money in the church, obviously. So I looked at my wallet and I'm like, okay, I got a 5, I got a couple of 1s. I'll just have this handy. If he comes and asks for money, I'll be like, look, I don't have any money in the church, but this is what I have. And so I was going to give him what I had in my wallet. And I thought, okay, that will probably resolve the problem. And hopefully then I can just move forward and we'll see. So because I didn't quite know the situation, but I thought, he's probably homeless, but I probably need to go over there and just make sure that he's okay, that he's fine. So what I thought I was going to do is I was going to get out of the car and then walk over to the post office and just say, hey, are you okay? Are you all right? Make sure that, the person was okay. So I processed all of that in my mind. I get out of the car. I make it out of I shut the front door of the church. I just round the corner of the building because I'm parked in the front of the building, and I get ready to come around the corner of the church. And about the time I do that, boom, it looks like something out of a movie. Taylor County sheriffs come from every direction in their white Broncos. It's like, here comes another one. Here comes another one. They're coming from, there's probably 4 or 5. They come flying in. They're on the radio. They pull up right at the post office. I look at them. They kind of just wave me to go on in. And I'm like, okay. So I unlock the church. I walk in and I'm like, okay, what is going on? I'm like, this is crazy. So I kind of keep looking out the door. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get all of my equipment. So I kind of walk over, get my equipment. And I don't know exactly what happened. Obviously, the person wasn't dead because the person's now gone. I don't know what happened, but the person is gone. They loaded him in the back of the Bronco, white Bronco SUV, whatever it is. I don't know anything about cars. They put him in and they were gone. And I don't know. I mean, they were there it took I don't know how long they were over there, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So I couldn't do any broadcasting. Because I didn't know if they were going to come need me. They need a statement. I don't know what was going on. So finally, they all left. But that's how my morning started here in the middle. I'm in the middle of nowhere, but that's what occurred. So whoever the person was, whatever was going on, they were picked up by the Taylor County sheriffs, plural. Okay. And I don't know why it took that many people. I don't know what happened. I don't know what call they received. I don't know what was going on. But I guess, all right, we have nothing to do. Let's all go run to the post office in Ovalo, Texas. Probably the most exciting thing that's happened to them in 6 months. Who knows? They were like, we've got to get there. So that's what's been going on. So now it's, once again, I'm back here in the middle of nowhere. And as far as I know, everything's quiet around the building. But you never know what's going to happen. I've had some crazy stories, but I just like you to have the picture of what's going on. I know that's 7 minutes and you don't really care, but that's what's been happening here today. So now, okay, I just thought I heard someone at the door. Okay, all right. I'm like, no, don't, you can't interrupt me now. After all of this time, I cannot be interrupted. Okay. So I was like, please don't do that. That's one of the reasons I kept waiting to go on live on the air, is because I wanted to make sure everybody was gone. I did an hour broadcast and didn't hear anything. So hopefully everything is good out there. I never know what's going on. So here it is. It's Monday, holiday, September the 6th, 2021. I don't know where you are. I don't know what you're doing, but we know what it is. It's a new week of Bible study. Now, we really introduced this, I believe, on Saturday. Sunday, I was going to do another kind of teaching, of course, Bible study exercise where I do some teaching, just kind of walking you through the text, working through the text with you, trying to get you to study. I was going to do that Sunday, but I didn't get to it. So it is Monday, and I knew that I needed to do something. So here I am, in spite of all of the craziness. We are going to focus on 1 Kings. All right. We're going to focus on 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 20 to 39. Now, we're not going to be able to cover all of that today, but we're going to do a little bit of work in the text. And hopefully, I can keep you moving forward and you can make it through another week of study. Remember, if you're new to all of this, the curriculum is available to you. Go to theologycentral.net, go to the blog section. You'll have to scroll down a little bit, look for the article that says Daily Discipleship Guide, follow the link, and you're it. We still have a lot of seats open. A lot of people have not taken advantage of the curriculum. I really believe, look, it's not going to cost you anything. It's free. Please use it. Please use it, okay? It's just right there. It's Bible study curriculum to supplement what we're doing in the podcast. And there's a lot of content there. So please, by all means, we want to use it. If you are using it, again, I still like to get that feedback of, yeah, I'm finding this beneficial, because remember, it cost us money. Right now, a listener's paying for it. I don't want that listener to waste their money. And I don't want us to, as a church, to waste our money if nobody wants to use it. So any feedback I get, let us know. Right now we have a very small group using it, but if that small group is using it, loving it, benefiting from it, then by all means, if we can afford it, we'll keep doing it because we want everyone to have access. Put it this way. It's a lot cheaper accessing all of that content through the means that we're giving you than trying to buy all those individual booklets for yourself. All right. I think it's easier to provide. In other words, if we're buying these individual booklets for everyone else, it would be costing us far more money than just simply giving everyone access to the digital copies. It's free. It's legal. We're doing everything the correct way. So we're not violating anything. We pay a monthly subscription and we are able to give a certain number of people access. And right now we're well below the number of people that we can give access to. So by all means, if you're like, well, I don't want to take someone else's spot, take it. Just take it. All right. Take it. Sign up today. All right. It's that simple. All right. So we're in 1 Kings chapter 18. And I hope you're having a good week of study. As always, I love hearing what you're learning, what you're studying. You can always email me, newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. Again, this week's study is 1 Kings 18, 20 to 39. I want you reading it, and then reading it a little bit more, all right? Because that's the key in study. But are you ready? All right, 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 20. The basic setup, the basic scenarios the basic understanding of the narrative at this point is simple. Ahab has come to power. He is an evil king. He's done more evil than all the kings before him. He has established Baal worship and built a grove for Asherah, the female deity. He is evil. He's married Jezebel. Ungodliness. He gets confronted basically by Elijah saying, hey, it's not going to rain. According to Luke, it's about 3.5 years that it's not going to rain because of this idolatry. That was a direct attack upon Baal and Asherah. It was a direct attack upon their false worship, their idolatry, and an attack upon those false gods. Because Baal is a storm god, fertility god. Asherah, when they would come together, that would produce rain. We've talked about all of that. So he has confronted their false gods. He has confronted their false deities, okay? Then God supernaturally provides for Elijah. We've talked about all of that, some of the interesting things going on in that part of chapter 17. But now we're in chapter 18, and the curriculum skips down to verse 20, all right? And yeah, that's what the curriculum does, and that's if we go back and start working before the verses before it, we could find ourselves probably never being able to catch back up. I would challenge you again, read 1 Kings 18 verse 1, 1 Kings 18 verse 1, all the way to verse 39. Read it all at least one time. And if you see anything that comes before that you think is very relevant or important in interpreting this section, let me know what you discover. I'm not going to give you any clues or tell you anything. I'm going to wait and see what people find for themselves. All right. So that brings us to verse 20. 1 Kings 18, verse 20. So Ahab sent unto all the children of Israel and gathered the prophets together unto Mount Carmel. All right. So now we're finally going to get the dramatic confrontation. The dramatic confrontation between basically the prophets of Baal and Elijah. We're getting ready to have a major confrontation here. And it takes place at Mount Carmel. Now, is there any significance to it occurring at Mount Carmel? What do we know about Mount Carmel? I'm not going to give you everything, but I'm going to give you a little bit of information based off one Bible dictionary. But a good lesson here to learn. Whenever you're studying your Bible and it names a place or a location, find out the basic information. Is there something significant about where it's happening? Is there something that we need? Is there something about that location that helps us understand the story any better? Is there something about the location, Mount Carmel, that is significant to what is occurring? Well, let's see if we can find some things out here, all right? If you look up Carmel, and I've got things falling out of the Bible dictionary. If you look up Carmel, you're going to get two entries. You're going to find one, a town in the hill country of Judah, all right? And number two, a mountain range. It's the mountain range that we need. That's the one we want. That's the one that's applicable to this story. We're not referring to the town and the hill country of Judah. We are referring to a mountain range stretching about 13 miles from the Mediterranean coast southeast to the plain of Dothan. All right, that's what we are looking for here, right? Now, the mountain range kind of juts out into the Mediterranean Sea. That kind of like there's an area where you have this mountain range and it just goes out a little bit into the Mediterranean Sea. That's very important to know. And this area is what is called a promontory. Is that how you say the word? Yeah, a promontory. And it's named Mount Carmel. So the part that kind of goes out into the Mediterranean, that is, I think, the area specifically that is sometimes referred to as Mount Carmel, according to I can't say every source, but it seems most of the sources. And again, a promontory, if I can say the word, promontory is a raised mass of land that projects into a lowland or a body of water. All right. Most promontories either are formed from a hard ridge of a rock that has resisted the erosive forces that have removed. And in fact, let me pull up the whole description here. A promontory. Okay, a promontory is a raised mass of land that projects into a lowland or a body of water, in which case it is a peninsula. Most promontories either are formed from a hard ridge of rock that has resisted the erosive forces that have removed the softer rock to the sides of it, or are the high ground that remains between the two river valleys where they form a confluence. Headland or a head is a type of promontory. All right. So you can look at pictures of them. There's just, you think of it, it just goes out into the water and then there it is, right? It just juts out into the water. That's the best way I can describe it. Okay. You may live in an area where you've seen these, have these. You may have visited places where you've seen these, but that's what we have here. And the Bible dictionary describes the promontory, that the part that juts out into the Mediterranean Sea, and a promontory named Mount Carmel. That's the part they described as Mount Carmel. It describes the entire mountain range that runs 13 miles, but this part that juts out into the promontory is what they are referring to as Mount Carmel, at least according to this Bible dictionary. Now, you can see if you find other sources that agree or disagree. Now, according to this dictionary, it raises sharply from the seacoast to a height of 470 feet, right? The mountain range as a whole averages over 1,000 feet above sea level, with 1,742 feet being the summit. All right, so you've got the mountain range, you got the promontory that juts out into the water. That area, again, according to this, the promontory raises sharply from the seacoast to a height of 470 feet. Okay, so I don't know. We could probably find it. You'd probably get a picture of exactly what it looks like. The Bible dictionary does not have a photograph of it. You can probably find maybe the area where they think this is referring to specifically, what it looks like today. But you kind of get an idea of maybe what you're trying to picture in your mind when Ahab's like, everyone, all right, we're all going to Mount Carmel. All right, gather everyone together. We're all going to Mount Carmel. All right. In fact, as it says, Ahab sent unto all the children of Israel and gathered the prophets together unto Mount Carmel. But there's more information in the dictionary that I think is important. That kind of gives you the geography, a little bit of the kind of the way it's how we can understand how it looked and its features. It gives you some of the basic description. But here's the part you need to know. The Canaanites built sanctuaries to pagan deities on this mountain. The Canaanites built sanctuaries to pagan deities on this mountain. So this is the absolutely best place for this showdown to go down, because this is the point I really want you to look. This is not so much a confrontation with Elijah and a bad government. This is Elijah and confronting a false religion, a false theology, a false worship. This is a theological battle, not a political battle. I think that is very important to see. All right. So the Canaanites built sanctuaries to pagan deities on this mountain. Thus, Carmel was an appropriate site for the confrontation between Elijah, the prophet of the Lord, and the prophets of Baal, the idolatrous Canaanite priest. It was also from the top of Mount Carmel that Elijah saw a sign of the coming storm, a cloud as small as a man's hand raising out of the sea. 1 Kings 18:44, a cloud that signaled the end of a prolonged drought. Now, is there something significant there? You can figure all of that out. All right? So we have a mountain range, a promontory, hopefully I'm saying that word correctly, that juts out into the Mediterranean. It rises on top of this, maybe the entire mountain range, or specifically this area. The Canaanites had built sanctuary to pagan deities. Ahab calls everyone there, and this is where the confrontation is going to occur. And again, it's a confrontation against false deities, against false gods, against idolatry. That's the confrontation here. It's not a political battle. It's a theological battle. It's about the truth of who is the true God. And Israel had turned from the true God and began to follow false gods, begin to follow idolatry, begin to follow the false deity of Baal. That was the issue. And that's the part of the story that we need to stay focused on. All right, now, there's a little basic information. Now, let's go from there. So that's verse 20, 1 Kings 18:20. So Ahab sent unto all the children of Israel and gathered the prophets together unto Mount Carmel. And Elijah came unto all the people and said, How long halt ye between two opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him, but if Baal, then follow him. And the people answered him not a word. All right, now verse 21. We've got the setting. We've got the scene. We've got the geography. We've got the significance of the location. We've got all of that pretty much laid out for you. All right? Okay? Please just try to consider all of that this week in your thinking. But then this verse is really so significant. I think the next two verses are very significant in this story. All right? Or at least I'm going to emphasize them at the beginning of this week. You have the halt between two opinions. That is the part of the story that I think is absolutely significant. Elijah is there and he's telling the people, how long are you going to basically stay between the two opinions, the two ideas, between Baal and the true God? How long are you, in fact, let me read it again. How long are you going to halt between two opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. Your options are the true God and Baal, the false God. The true God and idolatry. How long are you going to stand between these two? Pick a side, choose. And the people didn't answer a word. They didn't say anything. Maybe out of fear. We could talk all day about why. But I know we've already emphasized this, but I have to emphasize this again. I really want this week for you to just think and meditate and look in the mirror. What are the two things you are stuck in between in your spiritual life? How long are you going to halt between these two things? Where do you find yourself spiritually caught between, okay, this is the right way, this is the wrong way, and you sometimes find yourself caught between the two, and you don't want to answer a word and you don't want to say. I think there's a strong application here. Clearly, it's the historical narrative is describing their literal situation. They're literally trapped between a false God and a true God, and they got to choose. They got to pick their sides, and they don't want to answer. And I think a lot of times as Christians, we want Christianity, but we want the world. I think we're constantly caught between serving God and the flesh and the world. And we find ourselves in between. And sometimes we don't want to say anything. Sometimes we just want to pretend that we love God, we're pursuing God, we think about God. But the reality is we really love the world and ourselves and pursuing that. So sometimes I think we either don't say anything, or we just try to convince ourselves that we're more godly than we really are. And that's not that. I think I think this requires honesty here. All right. Then verse 22. This verse is the one that has really just bothered me so far in our study. That halt between two opinions, that's convicted me. Verse 22 has bothered me greatly because I don't know I want to make sure I interpret it correctly. Then said Elijah unto the people, I, even I only, remain a prophet of the Lord, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. So Elijah looks at, now remember the historical narratives, this is so important. The historical narratives just report what was said. They don't offer in many cases, any interpretation of what was said. They're just like, here's what was said. And it's up to you, the reader. How do I interpret this? What do I make of this? Do I look at this as, here's Elijah. Look, everyone, you're not going to say a word. You don't know what to do. You're stuck between these two opinions. Well, let me tell you something. Even I only, I am the only one that remains a prophet of the Lord. You need to know this. I'm the only one that remains a prophet of the Lord. But Baal, they have 450 men. The prophets of Baal are 450 men. It's me versus 450. Do we see this as a heroic statement of bravery, of demonstrating his loyalty, demonstrating his commitment? Hey, listen, I'm the only one left. You can't make an opinion. Well, you're not making an opinion. I've decided which side I'm going with. You can't come up with what to do. I've decided what to do. I'm loyal to the true God. There's no one else but me. Do we see it as heroic? Do we see it as showing his loyalty and his commitment? Or do we see this as a warning sign that Elijah's way of thinking is completely wrong? What happens in your spiritual life when you reach a point where you're like, I'm the only one left. I'm the only one serving God. I'm the only one who cares. I'm the only one who's committed. What happens to you when you begin to think that way? Maybe you would never be that vocal about it, but you begin to think, I'm it. Everyone else is wrong. What are the spiritual dangers that come with it? Now, if it's true that everyone else has abandoned God, should you be, in other words, what are the dangers that come from this way of thinking? In other words, if you are the only one, do you need to tell everyone that you're the only one? What is Elijah's motivation here? Is his motivation to try to get the people to stop halting between the two opinions? Or is his motivation to exalt himself? Is the motivation here, you look at me. You look at what I'm doing. You can't make a decision, but I don't want to read it. Am I reading that incorrectly? Like, what's the correct way to read this? Because it just seems so arbitrary. So just, hey, look at everybody. I'm it. And the reason this jumps out at me is because if you go to 1 Kings 19, all right, if you go to 1 Kings chapter 19, see, where is the verse? You see here. Oh, yeah, here we go. 1 Kings chapter 19. If you go to verse 15, and the Lord said unto him, go, return on thy way, tells him to return, goes to all of these different places, and it shall come to pass when he goes all of these different places. And now look what it says in verse 18, 1 Kings 19:18. Yet I have left me 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which hath not kissed him. Now, go back to 18. Go back to chapter 18. Look at what Elijah says. I, even I, only remain a prophet of the Lord, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. God tells him, there are 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which have not kissed him. In other words, not shown affection or love or worship to him. So Elijah's estimation here, now you could argue, well, he says, I'm the only prophet out of those 7,000. Are those prophets? The point is, though, did Elijah have a correct estimation, a correct perception of the situation, or was his perception incorrect? And because let's say his perception is incorrect, does that not lead to the problem that Elijah is going to face here before this chapter is over? Let's see here. So, in fact, if I can see it. Okay, yeah. Go to 1 Kings chapter 19, not in chapter 18. 1 Kings chapter 19. So now you have Elijah, but he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, came and sat down under a juniper tree, and he requested for himself that he might die, and said, it is enough now, O Lord, take away my life. I am not better than my fathers. Does Elijah end up so depressed that he wants to die sitting under a tree because his entire perception was completely wrong? Was his incorrect perception detrimental to his spiritual life? So let's go through this. Mount Carmel, perfect location for the showdown, demonstrating this as a theological battle, not a political battle. Mount Carmel was the place where the Canaanites had built sanctuary to pagan deities. It juts out into the water, a promontory, again, making sure I'm saying that correctly. When I have the word in front of me, I can say it correctly. When I don't have the word in front of me, I can't. All right. It rises up, above the water. There is Mount Carmel. There, I think, according to the dictionary, seems to imply that's where the showdowns are going to go down, right? That's where it went down, I should say, past tense. But for us reading it, we're not to the showdown yet. So that's where the showdown happened. That's where it's going to happen in our text. All right. So the main point there, theological, not political. All right. I want you to see that. Number two, Elijah. So there's number one. The location just demonstrates what kind of confrontation this is. Number two, Elijah confronts the people. How long are you going to halt between two opinions? And I need you. How long are you going to halt between two opinions? What two opinions are you halting between? And then number three, we have Elijah telling everyone, I'm it. I'm the only one left. Look, there's 400, as he states it here. Go back to 1 Kings chapter 18. As he says here, there's 450 against me. Now, again, I don't know how you interpret his words there. He's just stating a fact. Obviously, it doesn't appear to be a fact that if in 19, God says, look, no, I want you to understand something. In chapter 19, and chapter 18, he wants them to know, maybe if I can find it. Got to find the text here. See, chapter 18. Okay. There's the confrontation. See here. Oh, no, it's later on in chapter 19 where he says, chapter 19, right here. Where is it? Yes. 7,000 in Israel have not bowed their knee. So he's like, I'm the only one. Like, no, there's 7,000. There's 7,000. So his perception appears to be incorrect. So why is he stating it? Do you interpret that as bragging? Or is it just what he perceives to be a fact? In other words, maybe he's not bragging. He's just stating his perception, and his perception is incorrect. So the question is, does the incorrect perception, because clearly it seems to be wrong, does that lead him to sitting under a tree saying, oh, Lord, kill me, I'm ready to die? Does his perception hurt his spirituality? So the question I have for you, in what ways could your wrong perception be detrimental to your spiritual growth? Sometimes I think we always have to question, is our perception of a situation correct? I don't care what it is. You can perceive something going on at work and your perception is completely wrong. You can perceive something going on in your family, completely wrong. You can perceive something going on in your church members, completely wrong. You can perceive something going on in your pastor, completely wrong. We always have to at least call our perception into question. We should never completely trust our perception. And the reason why is our heart is deceitful above all things. So there's a high probability that in many cases our perception is wrong. Now, I know a lot of people love to brag about how good that they're very good at perceiving things. I think you always have to call your perception into question. So in what ways, so I want you to think about this. In what situation right now in your life are you perceiving something and your perception, if it is wrong, it's going to hurt you spiritually and could end up hurting a lot of people? Now, I don't know what to make of Elijah telling everyone, it's only me. It comes across as very braggadocious. It comes across as elevating self. I don't necessarily want to say that that's the correct way to read it, but I can dogmatically say he's incorrect. He perceives that he's the only one. He sees him versus 450, but it's really him plus 7,000. Now, in this particular situation, he may be the only one, but there's really more. Does that perception, incorrect perception, hurt him spiritually? Because, I mean, when we get to 19, Lord, I'm ready to die. Well, how does he, because everyone always talks about, how do you get from this massive confrontation with 450 false prophets, this amazing miracle that's getting ready to happen, this amazing display of the power of God, how do you get from that to, Lord, I give up, I want to die? How does that occur? Everyone always asks, how does that occur? Is the answer to that question found right there? I'm the only one. Is that the answer? How do you go from such a spiritual victory to basically spiritual disillusionment and defeat? Is it because of a flawed perception? Now, if Elijah is demonstrating great pride, if he's demonstrating great pride there, then the fall here is what happens. Because what comes before the fall? Pride comes before the fall. Pride comes before the great collapse. Pride comes before the great stumble. So is this pride, or is this just a wrong, flawed perception? What do you think Elijah is doing there? What do you think? Is it arrogance, or is it just a flawed perception? If it's arrogance and pride, then it fits that fits the narrative really well. He has a great victory, boom, then collapse, failure, discouragement, depression. Why? Because pride always comes before the fall. That preaches really good, but sometimes something that preaches good isn't the correct way to handle it. So if we can't say it's pride, we can't say that his perception is wrong. So then is it the flawed perception that leads to the discouragement and the depression? I've heard people say that what a lot of people say is that anytime this is what I've typically heard preached, that whenever you have a great spiritual victory, there's always great spiritual danger that flows from it. When you have great spiritual victory, there great spiritual danger is right around the corner. That wherever the greatest victory is in your spiritual life, that's where great spiritual danger lies next. That may be true, but as far as the text is concerned, I can't skip this verse. Then said Elijah unto the people, even I only, remain a prophet of the Lord, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. So we have three things here today. Mount Carmel. All right. Mount Carmel. In fact, I'm going to look up something here. All right. I don't care if I look foolish, but I'm just going to do it. All right. I'm getting all kinds of comments from people on YouTube. I'm going to do something really here. I don't care if it makes me look stupid, but I'm going to do it because I get really bothered when I think I did something incorrect. But I'm going to do it. And if I look dumb, I look dumb. All right. Here we go.
Promontory.
Okay, it's promontory. I think was I saying promontory? Who knows? Promontory. Promontory. So that's what it is. It's a promontory. There we go. All right. I wanted to make sure. I don't care if I look dumb. I don't care if I look foolish. That's okay. Promontory. So I think I was saying it correctly. No, I'm not. Promontory. I think I was saying it that way. Promontory. And again, we know Mount Carmel, this mountain range, goes for what? I think 13 miles, we said. Then it juts out into the Mediterranean. The promontory rises above the Mediterranean. And that area, according to the Bible dictionary, is really sometimes labeled as Mount Carmel. It's this promontory that goes out. On that promontory, it appears that's the location where the Canaanites built sanctuaries to pagan deities. And this is where the great confrontation occurs. And so what I want you to realize, number one, I want you to realize this, right? I want you to realize that is a clear example and evidence that this is not a political issue. This is a theological, this is an issue about true God versus the false God. That's what I want you to see and take from this, because we have a tendency to see things from a political perspective. This is a theological perspective. Number two, all right? So we have Mount Carmel, the promontory. We have all of that. Verse 21, we have Elijah saying, how long are you going to halt between two opinions? And I need you to ask yourself, how long are you going to halt between two opinions? And next, then said Elijah unto the people, even I only remain. How do you interpret this? Is it pride? And then that leads to the fall in 19. Is it just a false, his perspective, his whole understanding is just wrong? He has a flawed perspective. He has a flawed, his perception, a flawed perception. How do we understand this? Because I know we're jumping ahead, but that basic him kind of almost falling apart there at the end in 19 is pretty dramatic change. And I think we're getting a clue of it right here. So we have the area, Mount Carmel, promontory. Hey, look at that. Promontory that goes out into the Mediterranean. The Canaanites, did I say Carmelites? The Canaanites built pagan sanctuaries. This is a perfect place for the confrontation, demonstrating it's theological, it's not political. Number two, how long are you going to halt between two opinions? Another challenge for you to consider what opinions you may be halting between. And then number three, we have this whole, I'm the only one. Is it arrogance? Is it false perception? Is it a false perspective? What is going on there? You let me know. And there we have our Bible study for today. And it makes me mad when I mess up. That's the only problem when you're live on the air and you're like promontory. It's promontory. No, it's promontory. And you're sitting there and you're like, I know I'm saying it wrong. Now, see, on radio, I've seen like Glenn Beck and others, I've seen them like struggle with a word. And then and you'll hear them say, wait, how do you say that? And then they've got an earpiece in, and they got a producer on the other side of the glass talking to them in their earpiece to correct it. I don't have that. I'm in an empty room with no one to correct me. So it's me, myself, and I. Now, if I recorded my podcast and I would have just deleted all of this and just done it over, and then I would have looked really smart and looked really clever, and you'd be like, ooh, look how smart he is. But you know what? I want these Bible studies to be very real, and doing them in real time, yeah, sometimes there's going to be a mistake there because I didn't even, when I was looking at the dictionary, I did not even catch the use of the word promontory. I didn't even see it. And then when I saw it, I was like, okay, promontory. Okay, oh yeah, I know what, it juts out into the water. Okay, I know what a promontory is. Maybe I called it. Oh, look, there's some land that goes out into the water. Who knows what I called it in the past? But hey, look, I'm from Texas. There's some land that goes out there in the water. and there's some rocks out there in the water. Right? But maybe that's how I would have described it. So I apologize for that. Hopefully it bothers me more than it bothers you, but I do feel bad because I want you to get the best experience possible. So don't focus on that. Focus on those 3 points again. Focus on the 3 points. Mount Carmel is the perfect place for the confrontation. Sanctuary to pagan deities built by the Canaanites. Perfect place for this to go down because this is all about false worship and a false deity, not politics. Number 2, how long are you going to halt between 2 opinions? That is a great passage for you to ask yourself all of this week. What are the 2 opinions are you halting between? And then number 3, we've got to figure out what in the world Elijah was doing there when he stood up to tell everyone, it's only me. I'm the only one left. Is that pride or is it just him expressing? In some ways, I read it like he's just frustrated. I think in some ways I almost hear frustration. That's always the hard part in reading these narratives because we assign so much stuff to the text that we don't really know for sure. We don't have a narrator to come along to explain it. We just have the actual word said and we have to interpret it. We have to assign the emotion in it. There's a part of me that understands it like he's just mad. Look, so none of you are going to say a word. Well, let me make it very clear. You're not going to say a word, but I'm the only one. It's almost like anger. I almost see it as anger, but that anger demonstrates a false and flawed perception. His perception is flawed. We've got to understand what happens here because it's going to explain. It's got to be the key to understanding why Elijah is going to end up under a tree going, oh, man, just take me now. Well, how do you get there? Well, if your perception is that you're the only one, and is it not interesting that after God, in a sense, restores him and brings him back, that he then lets him know you're not the only one? And is that giving him that information? Is that not key to now him moving forward spiritually? I don't know. I look forward for you letting me know. You can email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. All right, I'll stop right there. Everyone have a great day. Thanks for listening. God bless.